is 13 minutes past 8. If you, well, it can't have been a bad life if you played one of the most iconic figures of all time and had your career span more than 50 years and at the age of 80 plus not look a lot over 50. But welcome to the world of William Shatner. If I was to list all the stuff he's done and still does, we'd never get to the questions. So let's skip that and get to the questions. William Shatner is with us. How are you?
I'm so glad to be back in Auckland. I spent a glorious day with you, a year and a half ago?
Yes, it was.
On stage. We had a happening with a Maori singer and that folk singer, that wonderful gentleman,
Dave Dobbin.
Yeah, I had the best time here. It's a memory not only of great fun because the people in the audience laughed and enjoyed it, but the ending with those two singers.
Wasn't it wonderful?
It was a spiritual time.
I tell people it was one of the highlights of my life in terms of career-wise. Working with you was such a thrill.
Wasn't it fun?
It was.
And with you and your sense of humor and your lightness and the people's enjoyment of the evening. A year and a half ago, we had a great time.
And you're back.
And I'm back to see you.
What is sad, Bill, is you took that show of yours and you put it on Broadway.
You know, I took that show. It started in Australia, this one-man show, ultimately called Shatner's World. I forgot what we called it here. And it started in Australia with some very talented Australian people. And I had, in every city, I had a gentleman, the popular guy in the city, which in Auckland was you. And we sat on stage, and then we had visuals and stuff like that. And I talked, and he asked questions. We had a good time. But then I toured Canada with it. So I toured Australia, came to Auckland, went to Canada, and toured from the west coast to the east coast of Canada, 6, 7 cities. And then Broadway beckoned, and they said, "Would you come to Broadway?" And I thought, well, I better get a little more serious about this because you could get killed in Broadway. So I rewrote it genuinely as a one-man show. So I was the only guy on stage, and sharpened the material a little, and opened on Broadway and got great notices, and a lot of people came to see it. And then I started a tour of the United States. First tour was 20 cities, and then we stopped for about 6 months, and I toured another 20 cities. I've done 40 cities.
Amazing.
In the United States with that one-man show.
But the point is, you cut the people like me out of it.
I know, but only after you.
Okay.
Because nobody else could live up to
you. Whatever.
No, not whatever. Don't be modest. You had that laugh. You had
I'm watching you on the net this morning. The brown bag wine tasting is brilliant.
Thank you.
It is absolutely. Is that? Explain what it is first of all.
You know, movies and television, and I hate to say this, and radio are not. They've reached their peak, and what's taking over is the social viral media, if you will, the Facebook and the 48 letters, the Twittering, and all that is what's happening in the show business. So knowing that and trying to keep abreast of the times, podcasting, 5-minute podcasts on my website, in this case, WilliamShatner.com, trying to find new material. So I've got lots of new material I'm working on, documentaries and stuff like that. But an idea occurred to me. I was working with a friend of mine who's a broadcaster and a sommelier, not working with him, just talking with him. And suddenly the idea of brown bag wine tasting, having a bottle of wine, and I don't know what it is, in a brown bag under my arm, and go to the man on the street, literally the man on the street, or in shops, just go in. Would you mind talking to me? Here's a glass, pour you a glass of wine, let's have a sip of wine. And I want you to analyze this wine in your terms, in broadcasting terms. Tell me about it as a broadcaster. Is this like 15 minutes? Is this are you describing a sports show, or is this sort of a talk show wine? Is it, you follow what I mean?
I do.
So that every conversation, as you well know over years of broadcasting and in conversation, every conversation has an insertion point. At one point you say, "Oh, I'm in." We're on a point. The wine does that. And so I'm able to talk to the wildest people in the strangest terms all because we have a sip of wine and we start talking. I call it brown bag wine tasting, and it's on WilliamShatner.com, and there'll be a new one every week.
How do you monetize it here? Because you're right about the future. You're right about the future, and we podcast. This will be podcast. We're going to multi-platform you, Bill, like you wouldn't believe.
Well,
you're on every platform going.
Yeah.
But monetizing it's the key.
Yes. How do you monetize it? So we haven't monetized it yet, but we think that there should be a sponsor, like a large wine sponsor might do it. Or it's getting popular, brown bag wine tasting. Imagine you seeing that. Here you are in New Zealand, and it's taking place in the United States. It's on my little website. Well, it's not a little website. It's quite popular, but look at the international way that travels. Why wouldn't somebody want to sponsor brown bag wine tasting? And we're actively now pursuing it. But how to monetize the webcast, the podcast, is
the big question. Yeah, it is the big question. What keeps you going? I mean, why do it? Why go to Perth and go to Adelaide and go to Melbourne and come here and do your 81 or 82? Doesn't matter. 80 plus.
Coming up, it's almost impossible to comprehend the age factor. You're 3 flights up from the street, and everybody went for the lift, or as we say in the States, the elevator. I forced everybody to come up the 3 flights of stairs.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. You thought I was breathless with excitement ever seeing you.
Well, that's because that's what you told me you were. You said I'm breathless with excitement to see you.
It was, in fact, 3 flights of stairs.
I believed you.
Yeah. It was compounded by the fact that I was seeing you. But I don't know. It's just, what am I going to do? What would you do if you retired? You'd go to a boat, you'd go some fishing, and a week into it, you caught your 5th fish, and you let it go because you've got enough fish in the freezer.
You're right.
What am I doing?
You're the same thing. Do you know what my theory is? I think I talked to you about this last time. The reason you look the way you do and is because you love what you do, and when you love what you do, you stay young.
I wrote a song last night.
Last night?
Well, I'm writing a new album with
Billy.
Yeah, well, singing, music, and I'll speak it because I can't sing, but there'll be singers on it. Billy Sheridan of Yes is the guy who will be writing the music. We're doing this album that has a working title of Red Shift because my fantasy is it takes place an hour before sunset, a guy on the beach, despondent. And so the opening song is this despondency, and then it evolves into the setting sun and then into the darkness, and all these songs follow that trail. Now, if I hadn't told you that and you heard the album, you'd still enjoy the music. But I'm writing a new album. And I got a new book that I'm writing.
You're incredible. I need to take a break.
Of course.
Because we are sponsored. We're monetizing this.
How do you do that?
Other people do it for me. I've got no idea how it works. But we'll do some of it and come back shortly. William Shatner is with us. You were here, Jones. Is launching with Sky and some of you.
It's a wild title, isn't it? So I'm here telling the 4 million people who live in Auckland and the 1 million that live in the... I think that's hysterical.
4 million in Auckland, 1 million in the rest of the country.
1 million in the rest of the country. That's Sky Television, Channel 13, is adding another channel.
And it's free.
And it's free.
And that's important. You won't know the background to this, but I've got a fundamental... And I know that these are your sponsors, and I don't want to upset them, and I don't want them coming through the door and dragging you out of the interview before it's even over.
Beating me up.
Exactly. I've had some... They have other channels they charge for, and I've got a philosophy of not paying for them.
But you won't, in your philosophy, you won't have to.
So, Joe, it all works. And what's on there? You?
Well, the Jones channel... that debuts May 13th, will have the great old television shows from the 60s to the 80s or 90s. Yeah. And 2 of the shows that I was on, T.J. Hooker and Star Trek,
I've heard of both.
So I'm here publicizing the fact that a network called Jones, a channel called Jones is on the
It's quite
on
edgy,
network.
Yeah. It's quite edgy. You're right.
It's nothing to sneeze at, too. It's a wonderful thing to do. There is Jones, and it's a strange name, but a good name. Like
Exactly.
you're holding on to it.
Exactly. The book, another book.
Yeah.
I read your last book. It had everything in it.
No, there's more.
Oh, no.
Yes, and I lived another day. There's a whole book of that.
Is it stuff we've never heard from? Is it more about you?
Well, no. The subject is apparently over the age of 55, when you're unemployed, it's difficult to get a job. There are less unemployed 55-year-olds, but those that are unemployed take longer to get a job.
Right.
And this is a book about how you might help yourself on that.
Well, how would you know? You haven't been unemployed post 55
No,
yet.
but I tell you, every actor who's finished a job is unemployed.
That's true.
You
That's
finish a job, and the whole act. I mean, of an actor or anybody employed in show business is, I finished that job. Where do I go next? So, people in show business. I mean, you wouldn't know because you've been broadcasting since you were 3. Your baby cries were over the air. I understand. But we're always looking for new work. That's part of being an actor. So this book will be
Good on you.
Hire Yourself.
Well, as always, I mean, we could talk forever, but
Channel 13, May 13th, Sky Network.
Are you going to take the stairs down?
Say again? Take the stairs down.
You taking the stairs down?
That's a good idea. It's a different set of muscles.
Exactly.
I've got a group of people with me. They're like panting, and they're thinking, "Oh my God, are we going to do this all day long?" No, just to start off.
Good on you. A pleasure to see you as
My
always.
pleasure, man.
Good to see you, mate. William Shatner, we're back tomorrow morning. Look forward to your company. Happy days.